Ready? All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the June 12th, 2025 Air Pollution Control District Governing Board meeting. Thank you to the members of the public, our board members, for being there. Now that we have a quorum, let's go ahead and start the meeting and FYI, we'll be leaving early today at 3:30, and then our vice chair will be taking over. So we're going to go through these items as efficiently as we can. With that, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Thank you, Chair Bush. I would like to note for the record that Member Campbell has notified us that she will be absent from today's proceedings. All remaining board members will be joining us in person. With that, Member Beck Garcia.
Here.
Member Bush.
Here.
Member Duncan.
Present.
Member Fitzgerald. Member Gloria.
Here.
Member Gomez.
Here.
Member Koval.
Here.
Member Lawson-Remer. Member Stigler-Granados.
Here.
Thank you. We'll now move to non-agenda public communication. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to the board on any subject matter that's within the board's jurisdiction, but not an item on today's agenda. Today's non-agenda public communication will be limited to 2 minutes, and I will go ahead and call our first speaker, Mr. Cesar Javier. Again, you will have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record, and you will be able to use the timer that is on the screen to self-regulate your time.
Good morning.
Excuse me, may I have the honor of ladies first?
Okay, so Ms. Perita Javier will be speaking. You can begin.
Good morning. We began our war against air pollution, curious, and first, the home-based non-metallic mineral project manufacturing, also known as ceramics manufacturing and kiln operation next door, 25 feet from our home, a neighborhood dedicated and residential zone community. It has been operating since 1984, owned by a graduate of Mesa College Ceramics vocational program and became a member of the San Diego Pottery Guild based in Balboa Park in 1992. The facility built composing of a work structure approximately 14 by 20 and kiln separately behind a single family home about 40 feet. The work, however, were mostly done at the garage, enclosed space, shaping, and I don't know that word, molding. Once ready for filing for baking and pottery, then we moved to the kiln. Science through research and study by Princeton and by Baylor universities and Goshen College, including health bulletin by Center for Disease and Control, CDC, of 2020 confirmed that ceramics kills emits toxicity poison gas.
Thank you, Ms. Javier. Mr. Javier? Mr. Chair, or Mr. Javier, could you please speak into the mic
We reiterated.
and begin in 2 minutes?
You sit there now. Yeah. We were hurt. My wife here has been diagnosed as Alzheimer to dementia low moderate level now. She hurt her lips the other day in our hurry to seek help from other entities, NGOs, churches. We are here not to hate you, but to awaken our intelligences, assign leadership intelligences such as Mayor Gloria, Filipino Independence celebration at National City. Happy Independence Day. We are free. Do your job, Filipino. If you are a true Filipino, that's here in our Constitution. Corruption equals monopoly plus discretionary without accountability. He is good at that, including Councilor Rivera, who is supposed to be the lead in solving our issue in our neighborhood, District 9, City of San Diego, Sir Chair. Sir Mayor from Coronado. We do not inhale the free breeze from the Pacific Ocean. We are inland, Mr. Mayor. We are the community that is already economically, I'll tone down, ma'am,
Mr. Chair,
economically
Chair.
underserved.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's a difference between giving public comment and raising your voice to scream at people. That's not the way we communicate with each other.
My apology,
So
ma'am.
if you can please keep it down
Yes,
and deliver your testimony.
thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We are hurt, and this is how we fight the revolution. We do not want to use weapon. We only use our voice. Pardon me if my voice is strong and we disable at this particular volume. We are hurt. Who will listen to us? Thank you for listening. We are hurt. And let us wake up, citizens. Oh, sorry. My voice is too.
Thank you, Mr. Javier. Your time has expired. Next, we have it's Nikki Zimmerman, and you have 2 minutes. Following Nikki Zimmerman will be Martin Zimmerman. Yes, that's fine.
Hi, I'm from Mission Beach Town Council, Area 1 Rep, from the Jetty to Balboa Court. We're here to, again,
Ms. Zimmerman, I'm going to pause you real quick. Just
Yep.
unfortunately, under the board's rules of procedure, you won't be able to tag team. You each will need to speak
Okay.
separately.
okay,
Okay, her 2 minutes. I understood that.
Yeah.
Your 2 minutes and then your 2 minutes separately. If I didn't make that clear, apologies.
okay, thank you.
But you can join her up there.
So we've spoken at the city council about the budget item for the bonfires. And the only thing that Mission Beach Town Council has been asking for 11 years is to relocate the jetty fire pits that Faulkner and Sanders moved from all over the beach and bay in front of our community. We bought EPA meters after we started getting sick and our neighbors were getting sick and they're dying from stage 4 lung cancer now. I've got nodules that are popping up now that are painful, and my doctors are freaking out. When my doctor saw our photos of our screenshots of our EPA meters, she said, "No wonder so many people in San Diego have cancer." But I'm here only to ask this board to work with the Parks Department and the city to make this part of the budget item, that the fire pits get moved downwind instead of upwind from the community. It could be 400 feet away on the bay side at Mission Point, or at the best place would be where the police patrol, because they don't come down to the jetty. And that is where they burn construction waste as well as wood. But wood is very toxic. So Bonita Cove, Mariners Point, or Fiesta Island were chosen by San Diego Police Department as a great choice. And Scott Wall has asked when he was our captain to do this, and he agrees, and so does Northern. So do you want to add?
4 seconds.
All right, well, if your time concluded, that's,
Okay.
yeah, thank you, Nikki, and Miss Martin.
So everything she said and everything Caesar said, I mean, I think we're him in a different place, right? So we've been living at the beach. We worked hard. Everybody goes, "Oh, boo-hoo, you live at the beach, you have to breathe some smoke." It's not just a little smoke. I've lived there for a long time. And I think, Mayor, I think you saw the video I brought in with all that stuff. I mean, it's nuts. If you want to breathe smoke, have at it. Put the fire pits wherever you guys want them. I think that you need to listen to the people. Nancy Geller, I don't know if you remember Nancy, this was like 8-9 years ago. They pushed to get the fire pits removed, just like what we're talking about now. And then Faulkner and Sanders moved them all down to South End, like 11, 12 of them. So imagine 12 of these things in front of your house every night. This morning we woke up, the air is like, in the yellow, which is like not great. So in the morning you open your doors, it's like,
But it's also blowing into the city in the morning when the ocean winds pick up. If you look at the meters around San Diego before rush hour, your meters, in these other communities.
Sorry, so
Oh,
it's
I can't
just
do
one at a time, please.
can I have her time back? Well, that's the other thing. Okay, so the canary in the coal mine. I think we are the canary in the coal mines. The city is really polluted. It's the 8th worst city in the nation. How can that be? It's near the ocean. Everybody's, happy playing volleyball. It's all wonderful. Where's all this pollution coming from? So I think there's a big picture here that we are just sort of scratching the surface. And our doctors are looking at us going, you guys have an environmental issue. We don't know what it is. And all of a sudden I can't surf anymore. I've had 2 heart attacks, all this stuff. I was a helicopter pilot up until the time I had a heart attack, and now I got medicaled out. So I lost my job. It's there's a lot of stuff going on here that's right there. And I think making it propane solves a ton of that.
And that's,
Thank you, Mr. and Ms. Herman. Your time is concluded. Appreciate your comments. Thank you. And Clerk, I believe we have someone online.
Our last speaker is 3731. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. You can come off mute.
I did. Hey, there's truth. First, free speech includes free volume choice. If you don't like it, leave this job. How dare anyone try to restrict free speech 2 days before Flag Day? Second, APCD requires better video audio recording so I can hear everyone better. APCD's air quality priorities should not be restricting speech, but a clear, measurable list to achieve, with Mexico's sewage effects being obvious number 1. At the February meeting, none of you even knew anyone in IB who receives an air purifier. Do you realize it's now been over a year since the county originally started this program? And I heard the May 17th pickup event was canceled at the last minute. See, your priorities are messed up. For those that don't know, during last summer, the toxic odors used to hit exactly at 6 p.m. and then later at 1 to 4 a.m. And the enveloping smell was unimaginable. But Jen was dead on when she said it was more of a pathogen issue than an odor issue. Last November, I suffered a severe asthmatic cough from breathing that toxic air, and so I stayed away from IB for a month in order to recover my health, and luckily it worked. Where Jen was dead wrong, us funding plants from Mexico hasn't been working. We paid for 80% of the SAB plant, and those arrogant buffoons couldn't even buy the right type of pipes. They delayed the plant by almost a year and had 3 sewage spills that resulted in an extra 5 million gallons of sewage a day hitting IB. That's just one of many examples. Enough. Mexico must be politically incentivized to build what they require for their own people and their own problems, to follow the treaties. America cannot play nice anymore with those that have harmed our country's health and environment for 90 years. Friends don't pollute friends. APCD should be signing on to all the solutions offered up by the city of IB to the federal government. Every single rep in this county, including the current mayor of IB, better get on board or suffer looking like a phony, the type who capitalize on crises for political gain. People's health is not a game to be played. And why did staff want to support AB 652's weighted vote at both committee and board? I want to back up John on his warning about that being a destructive idea as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment on this item.
All right, thank you, Clerk. We'll move on to item number C, approval of the May 8th, 2025 Statement of Proceedings minutes.
Thank you. We have one request to speak on this item. Mr. Cesar Javier, you have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record, and please use the timer on the screen to self-regulate.
And as a reminder, Mr. Javier, this was about the minutes for the last meeting, so please keep your comments focused on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, my apology. But I cannot stop the hurt as recorded on the last minute, last May. We must redeem this handicap. Assign leadership. Why every other month? We should be here every week because there is a crisis as declared by this board supervisor Vargas. Remember? She stepped down December while having this meeting previously. You know that. And that what we missed in our minutes. We do not have minutes. Why is that? For transparency, equity, accountability, where is the minutes of yesterday time? I didn't see Mayor Gloria in the minutes. He is present, but his mind is somewhere. Councilor Campbell,
Mr. Javier,
this will be in the minutes
you're
next time.
you're off topic. That is not
Thank you,
part of the
sir.
minutes, and all of that is actually included in the minutes technically. Thank you, Mr. Javier.
Yes, but I
Okay,
have
thank
not
you,
the
Mr.
record, sir.
Oh, it's
Thank you.
it's in there included. Thank you, Mr. Javier.
Thank you.
Do we have any other?
That concludes public testimony on this item.
Thank you. With that, any members of our board have any comments or questions? And if not, then can I take a motion?
Yeah, no comments. I'll move.
All right. So we have a motion from Member Gomez. I'll go ahead and second that. All right. Do you want me to call? Okay. Can we go ahead and call the vote? All of those in favor, just we'll just take a raise your hand or say aye. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed or abstentions?
Thank you. With members Campbell, Lawson, Reamer, and Fitzgerald absent, that motion passes with those board members who are present voting aye.
Awesome. Thank you. So we'll move on to the consent calendar. We have one item on consent, and that is the amendment to the services agreement between the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District and the County of San Diego. So with that, I'll clerk.
Thank you, Chair Bush. We have one member of the public that has pulled item D1. If there is no request from your board for a staff presentation, we'll go ahead and hear the public comment, and then we can move to any questions and discussion from the board. If there are none, then we will go ahead and take a motion. So I would call Cesar Javier. You have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record, and please self-regulate your time using the timer on the screen.
And please stay on topic, Mr. Javier. Thank you.
Item C.
Item
C.
D1.
D on the consent. D1.
D1. You see, our predicament, the menace that has been prevailing there in our community is in this particular period of transition. No one wants to face it squarely and solve that menace. You covered up the business that you are aiming at peak rather than small things that are creating threat to the air we breathe in our community. That particular period, I must tell you, the Roll Code 11 of 1979 is the same period when SEQA was mandated for us. People of America, San Diegans, come on, let's review our particular rule here. It exempted 20 industrial and manufacturer without any regard to
Mr. Javier,
inspection or
please,
safety.
Mr. Javier, please stick to the topic, which is the amendment to the service agreement between APCD and the county.
Yes, sir. Services for the people. By the Air Pollution Control District and the county. They should be as one. That's the governance for unity of effort. Where was the solution, Director Farbis? Chair Sue of La Mesa is gone now. Thank God. And now came the volunteer, brave enough, Mr. Marcos Bus. Let's solve the issue, sir. I have more 12, 11, 10 seconds. Do something. We have 11 intelligences, Ma'am Forbes, Sir Chair, and we are thankful for the entry of Mayor Duncan.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Javier. And then do we have any other comments online?
We have one virtual speaker, 3731. You have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record.
Hi, it's Truth again. I'm glad you guys are so eager to hear public comment. At last Tuesday's Board of Supervisors meeting, you'll all be happy to know I said, forget the agreement, APCD should just be dissolved. Now, why did I say that? because the alleged mission is to improve air quality to protect public health and the environment. But what I have been seeing is that it is to make money and to make sure that some people are silenced so you can hurry up and make more money, to tax people under the guise of improving air quality. And if you don't like that, then prove me wrong. Because taxing food operators thousands of dollars for cooking 415 pounds of meat a month or only 59 one-pound burgers a week is an attack upon restaurants. It does not help anyone's health in some kind of measurable way. And I know you got all your kinds of data-driven deception to say otherwise, but that's on you. Because meanwhile, the inadequate amount of air purifier Band-Aids are MIA. I know people who live within 1 mile of the TRV that can't get one. And you have no explanations for why events are canceled and all of a sudden you're going to ship them instead. Why couldn't you ship them from day one? You see, your priorities are messed up, and then you get mad that you have comments that have maybe some more elevated anger in them. There's a reason. And so that's why I advocate for dissolution. And all of those tax dollars should be spent on buying enough air purifiers. And if any money's left over, put it towards HVAC systems. And I ask, why did Todd want the county and the district to separate? Was that for more money too? After it finally fully separates from the county, will APCD become another little corrupt Sandag-like entity? Because that's how it feels like it's already starting with the censorship. And so I warn against that as well. That concludes my comments.
All right, thank you, Truth. So with that, do any board members have any questions about the item? Seeing none, can I have a motion? All right, we have a motion from Member Gloria. Second from Member Koval. We ready to take a vote? Okay. With all that, everyone in favor, please say aye or say yes. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, approved unanimously.
Thank you. With members Fitzgerald, Campbell, and Lawson Reamer absent, that motion passes with those board members who are present voting aye.
All right, thank you. So for the sake of time and for efficiency, making sure we get through some of our closed session items, we're going to move items E5, E6, and E7 after E1 and E2. So we're going to take those two first items and then we're going to move into closed session. So we make sure we get these items that are on deadline approved as soon as possible. So next is item E1. It's a public hearing adoption of our APCO's recommended budget for fiscal year 25-26. So with that, clerk.
Thank you, Chair Bush. We've only received one request to speak on this item, which will be heard at the conclusion of any staff comments. If the board has no request for a staff presentation, then there will be none. I'll turn it over to Deputy Director Mike Watt.
Thank you, Marvis. Thank you, Chair and board members. As we discussed in May, the Air Pollution Control Officer's recommended budget for next fiscal year, 25-26, was released on April 8th, and the initial public hearing took place last month on May 8th. With the exception of updating page 3 in the budget summary document to reflect the appointment of Member Steve Granados, there's been no changes to the recommended budget that was presented to the board last month, and no additional comments have been received. One thing to note, during the May presentation, we mentioned that the recommended budget included across the board salary and benefit cost assumptions as a placeholder pending the outcome of labor negotiations at the County of San Diego. Just this last Monday, the Board of Supervisors approved the introduction of amendments to the compensation ordinance and tentative labor agreements pending ratification by the employee bargaining units. Based on the information provided, we believe our standard assumptions are sufficient to cover the initial increases as introduced, and no revisions to the proposed budget are necessary at this time. Final consideration of the adoption of that ordinance will be heard by the County Board of Supervisors on June 24th, and we will reassess the assumptions at that time if there are any changes. As part of this labor agreement, APCD management was consulted with what was introduced, and we will continue to be more involved in future negotiations to ensure that APCD is at the table. As Marvis alluded to, we have prepared a brief presentation and are happy to run through that summarize what we discussed in May if the board would like, or available to answer any questions you may have.
So would any of the board members like the presentation to be shown again? Anyone need that for now? Seeing none, before I move on to public comment, does any of our members have any technical questions for Mike or for staff before I move on to public comment? No? Sorry, Vice Chair, okay. Okay, seeing none, we'll go on and move to public comment.
We have one request to speak. Cesar Javier, you have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record and use the timer to self-regulate your time.
Yes, sir.
Proposed budget, Mr. Javier, FY 25 to 26.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Cesar Javier, I'll stick on the budget. I am just a simple man, and I budgeted my money to my family for their survival. For clean air, clean water, clean food, clean and safe neighborhood, our home, to enjoy home life in our humble property. Same thing with this. How would you expect me to approve the budget when you do not perform well? When the governing board member 2, 3 are absent, and the only job is yes, no, that is weightlifting, sportsmanship, not governance. Pardon me. We need a working mind. Like the Mayor Gloria of City, Core City, you should be the spearhead of all the efforts, sir, so that the budget from the public point of view would be prayed to be handed to you. Assigned leadership is not a joke. You may have cheated the people for your votes, but you can never cheat us because we see the kind of service you are rendering to our city, Mayor Gloria. I am disgusted. I am not satisfied with the budget the city has allocated.
So
for
again,
this
we are
year.
talking about the APCD budget. We're not talking about City of San Diego. Please stick
Yes,
to the
sir.
topic and not individual board members.
Because the budget calls for the payment of your
Member
acting
Gloria
officer
is
per
here
hour.
as a member of APCD, not as the mayor of San Diego. That's not the topic, Mr. Javier. Please stick to the topic. You have 10 seconds.
Yes, sir. 10 seconds. Corruption equals monopoly plus discretion. Monopoly because they are status quo in their thinking. We need to reorganize and make this sharp
Thank you, Mr. Javier. Your time has expired.
organization. Thank you, sir.
That concludes public testimony on this item.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to board discussion. So any members, I'll go ahead and kick this off. I really appreciate staff for all of their efforts on this updated budget, especially with everything going on at the federal level, all the changes in our funding with EPA grants. So I know there's been a lot thrown at you guys. So really appreciate your hard work and corralling and being innovative. And we've had several meetings, so really appreciate you all looking at that. And so I'm supportive of this effort. I don't have any other particular comments or questions, but just I know that this year is going to be challenging, but I really appreciate you guys for being responsible, for holding the line and not making huge cuts. It's going to impact our delivery for services and impact issues like the sewage crisis and air emissions there. So really proud of the work that you guys have done, and so I'm supportive of this budget moving forward. Any other members of comments? Seeing none, then could I invite a motion? All right, so we have a motion from Member Gloria,
I'll second.
second from Vice Chair. All right, with that will go ahead and call the roll. All those in favor of approval of the budget, please signify by saying aye, raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. That motion adopts a resolution entitled Resolution of the Government of the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District to adopt the budget for fiscal year 2025-26. With members Campbell, Fitzgerald, and Lawson Reamer absent, that motion passes with those board members who are present voting aye.
Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to item E2. This is the MOU with the Port of San Diego, implementation of the Maritime Clean Air Strategy and Portside Community Emission Reduction Plan. With that, Marvis, can you go over the public comment testimony and any presentation we have?
Thank you, Chair Bush. I would like to note for the record that requests to speak for this item will no longer be accepted per our rules of procedure. We currently have 6 requests to speak, with 2 of those requests to speak being virtual requests. We have 3 virtual requests. All requests to speak and all public testimony will be heard at the conclusion of the staff presentation.
And then do we have the staff presenting?
We'll turn it over to our lead.
Great.
Rule Supervisor Nick Cormier to walk us through the presentation.
Good afternoon, Governing Board members. Today we'll be presenting the proposed Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between the Air Pollution Control District and the San Diego Unified Port District. This document represents the culmination of almost 3 years of hard work by both agencies and is a critical milestone in the progress towards cleaner air in the Portside region. We do have some of our Port District partners in the room today in case questions arise. We sincerely appreciate their cooperation as a collaborative partner in this effort. Next slide, please. As a refresher, AB 423 included a provision that APCD consider measures to reduce indirect source emissions from mobile sources, including warehouses, distribution centers, and ports. We started discussions with the port in October 2022. The following June, APCD Governing Board directed staff to continue discussing a possible MOU with port staff based on preliminary concepts. In October 2023, we presented draft MOU concepts to the Portside Steering Committee and received generally positive feedback. In December 2023, APCD and Port staff then presented more refined MOU concepts to the Port Board of Commissioners and the APCD Governing Board. Since that time, APCD and Port staff have had several outreach opportunities with the boards, community members, and working waterfront representatives and have worked to finalize the MOU language before you today. Next slide, please. Before getting too far ahead, we should not lose sight of the investments that the port tenants, service providers, and APCD have already made to further encourage zero-emission transportation and more efficient operations. Approximately $227 million in total investments have been made in recent years, including the development and deployment of the first electric tugboat in the U.S., the first all-electric harbor crane system in North America, and expansion of shore power systems at the Port District's marine terminals. While there is clearly more work to do, additional funding commitments are on the way, some of which will be included in this MOU. Next slide, please. The proposed MOU will support the Portside SERP and the Port District's Maritime Clean Air Strategy, or MCAS. For the SERP, the MOU will support SERP actions such as incentive opportunities, reducing emissions from heavy-duty trucks, working waterfront activities, and advocacy measures. The MOU will also serve as a catalyst towards achieving several MCAS goals and objectives, such as for zero-emission cargo handling equipment, ZEV trucks, ocean-going vessels, and community and health goals. This MOU will help provide a bridge between these two important documents. Next slide, please. Both agencies agree that a balanced MOU that improves public health, protects good-paying jobs, and accelerates implementation of MCAS and SERP goals is a high priority. Both agencies also agree that an MOU can achieve these objectives, quickly reduce emissions, and strengthen our agency's relationship with tenants, service providers, and community members. Accountability, community transparency, and ensuring there are no regulatory exemptions are also key priorities. Next slide, please. The proposed MOU before you today has the potential to be groundbreaking, as it is believed to be the first of its kind between a port and an air district. The proposed MOU term will be for 6 years between 2025 and 2031. So long as the MOU and its provisions are being successfully implemented during the term, both agencies envision the MOU would continue to serve in place of an indirect source rule affecting Port District operations. Both agencies would have responsibilities to adhere to, which we will cover in the following slides. The main measures that comprise the MOU are primarily included within 6 schedules as attachments to the MOU. These include cargo handling equipment, trucks, vessels, public participation, infrastructure, and off-tidelands projects within the Portside community. Next slide, please. The goal for the first schedule in the MOU is to transition diesel-powered cargo handling equipment to zero emission. For APCD, this will include a $3 million commitment to provide prioritized incentive funding to tenants, service providers, or the Port District to purchase ZEV cargo handling equipment. The incentive program developed will include more flexible requirements and enhanced funding to encourage more applications. Concurrently, the port will be required to provide enhanced education, technical assistance, and outreach to ensure these entities submit viable applications on time. For cargo handling equipment and trucks, we've built in 2 milestones to ensure progress is made. Milestone 1 would be ensuring contracts are executed for the full $3 million in applications received within 3 years. If that is successful, APCD would seek approval from community members to unlock additional funding in the final 3 years of the MOU term, which is milestone 2. In line with board direction, we have included an alternative equivalent option in case achieving these milestones are not successful. Next slide, please. The goal for Schedule 2 is to transition diesel, medium, and heavy-duty trucks to zero emission. This schedule resembles the cargo handling equipment schedule in that ABCD will prioritize $4 million to tenants, service providers, or the Port District to purchase ZEV trucks through the ZEV Truck Pilot Project that ABCD currently implements. The Port would also commit $1 million for ZEV truck acquisitions, usage, or infrastructure, and agree to promote and reevaluate its Zero Emission Vehicle Incentive, or ZEVI program, to encourage more ZEV truck adoption. The Port would also publicly report truck visit activity at each cargo terminal every 6 months. As is the case with CHE, we've built in 2 milestones into the schedule. These milestones incentivize short-term progress, tied together with SERP and MCAS target years, unlock additional funding if successful, and ensure there are backup procedures in place if milestones aren't met. Next slide, please. The alternative equivalent option process for CHE and trucks is summarized on the screen. If a milestone is achieved, both agencies would then seek feedback from the Portside Steering Committee to allocate additional funding for cargo handling equipment or truck projects to get more emission reductions from each sector. If for some reason a milestone isn't achieved, it would trigger a sequential process between both agencies. We would first try to assess what challenges were encountered and if there were any simple ways to address the issue. If the problem could not be addressed, we would first seek to reallocate funding to other categories already included in the MOU. If sufficient demand did not exist in these other categories, both agencies would then seek to reallocate funding to alternative projects that were not already included in the MOU that might require more time to set up. If that still wasn't feasible, we would then seek feedback from the Portside Steering Committee about alternative investments we haven't thought of. And finally, if all else fails, we would remediate the issue through standard contract provisions in the MOU. The process addresses the direction we received from the board to ensure there is community involvement in funding decisions throughout the MOU term. Next slide, please. Schedule 3's goal is to promote initiatives to reduce emissions from vessels, specifically commercial harbor craft and ocean-going vessels. This equipment produces substantial NOx and PM emissions, so even small improvements can result in significant health benefits. Both agencies agree to encourage more participation in the Voluntary Vessel Speed Reduction, or VSR program, within 40 nautical miles of the port through enhanced recognition and awards. Encouraging ships to slow down as they get closer to land can substantially reduce emissions, and there are opportunities for existing shippers to improve upon what they're doing today. Both agencies would also collaborate with the commercial harborcraft community to provide outreach and education about existing incentive and/or regulatory requirements. Port would also publicize its VSR program and track its progress, and would maintain its Green Marine program, which is a voluntary initiative that ports around the world participate in to reduce their environmental footprint. APCD would also agree to look at creating new or modifying existing incentive programs for commercial harborcraft during the MOU term. Next slide, please. Schedule 4 supports enhanced public participation in Port District and APCD projects, which might occur within the Portside community, an aspect that is very important to community members. The intent of this schedule would be to ensure community members are aware of maritime industrial projects coming down the pipeline in the Portside area early in the planning process to ensure they have a chance to weigh in. These enhancements would start immediately upon MOU adoption and remain in place throughout the MOU term. For the port, there would be 5 distinct improvements. Prior to a project being directed by the Port's board to initiate environmental review at a public hearing, the port would be required to provide early notification of the hearing to interested community stakeholders. At the public hearing, the port would also summarize these community engagement efforts for their board and include any information about anticipated emission sources if known. Assuming the project proceeds into formal environmental review, the port would then commit to specific outreach activities during the CEQA process, including a community meeting to discuss the project, CEQA analysis and consistency with the MCAS and SERP, and opportunities for comment. Port staff would then provide early notification to the same stakeholders to inform them about the final environmental analysis and the upcoming board hearing to consider adoption of the project. Finally, to ensure possible new tenants are aware of MCAS and SERP objectives, the port would include MCAS and SERP language in RFP proposals to ensure prospective tenants have the same MCAS and SERP goals in mind. Projects in which APCD is the CEQA lead agency are not as ubiquitous, and though the process differs from the port, we would also be committing to similar early engagement and outreach opportunities. Next slide, please. Infrastructure is Schedule 5, and its goal is to help facilitate the transition to ZEV equipment through proactive planning, design, and construction. The port commits to complying with existing CARB regulations to ensure infrastructure is available to tenants. They also agree to continue planning for electrification and infrastructure modernization activities. This includes submitting summary reports of such activities to APCD to ensure we and community members are aware and keep progress of any infrastructure planning in the works. Both agencies also agreed to continue to seek out additional funding that could help make progress with electrification and infrastructure planning or construction. Next slide, please. Finally, Schedule 6 involves identifying potential off-tidelands projects in Portside that could receive funding through the Port's Maritime Industrial Impact Funds, or MIF. The port recently increased the percentage of funds dedicated to the program, which can go towards diminishing impacts caused by activities at the marine cargo terminals. To increase participation in the program, the Port District agrees to conduct education and outreach with APCD to inform potential stakeholders about program eligibility and its benefits. The Port would also agree to review MIF availability annually and evaluate applications in line with existing policy. For APCD, we'd work with the Port and Portside Steering Committee to help identify possible projects, activities, or recipients to make applications or proposals. Next slide, please. One aspect that was brought up in discussions with stakeholders is how the public would be informed about MOU progress, challenges that were being faced, or potential modifications that might be needed. Both agencies believe that there will be ample opportunities to hear about the MOU progress throughout the MOU term, as illustrated on the slide and enshrined in the MOU language. Some of these check-in points include annual meetings with the Portside Steering Committee and other parties, as well as annual progress reports being completed. There will be also routine check-ins from staff from both agencies to go over implementation, milestones, emission reductions achieved, and to discuss the alternative equivalent options if needed. Next slide, please. To summarize, the proposed MOU is a critical initial step to quickly reducing emissions at the port. If successful, it can be accomplished quickly to support MCAS and SERP goals. It seeks to achieve much-needed reductions in NOx and diesel particulate matter. Using CARB methodologies, the MOU has the potential to reduce over 200 tons of combined NOx and DPM over a 10-year period, a large portion of which would come from ocean-going vessels. APCD envisions being able to speak to more accurate emission reduction calculations as part of annual MOU updates. Reductions in diesel particulate matter result in localized health benefits for Portside, while reductions in NOx result in less ozone formation and health benefits for the region overall. Based on estimates from EPA's COBRA screening tool, staff believes the corresponding emission reductions would equate to over 7,000 fewer incidents of negative health consequences over a 10-year period, such as fewer asthma attacks or lost or restricted workdays due to air pollution. Tenants and service providers will be critical to realizing the success of the proposed MOU, and thus this document ensures them prioritized access to funding programs for ZEV equipment. This document also allows flexibility to shift funding between categories through the established alternative equivalency process, which was important to many stakeholders. The proposed MOU would also enshrine popular community engagement elements that support public participation, promote transparency, and share project information about major future projects in the Portside community. Accountability and community involvement would also be a high priority throughout the MOU term and will ensure community members are regularly informed about progress being made on the MOU or if modifications are made. No agreement is ever perfect, but both agencies believe the proposed MOU has the potential to benefit both tenants and the Portside community. Next slide, please. APCD and Port staff have presented the proposed MOU measures multiple times to the Portside Steering Committee, Working Waterfront representatives, and in the Maritime Stakeholder Forum. Additionally, APCD released the proposed MOU language for public review on May 20th. Feedback from these discussions has generally been well received from both community partners and industry, an indicator of the significant amount of time and careful thought put into the language before you today. Included in your board package are letters of support from industry representatives, including the Working Waterfront, Pacific Merchant Shipping Association, and Supply Chain Federation, as well as from environmental groups, including the Environmental Health Coalition and the Climate Action Campaign. As far as the next steps, APCD is here today to present the proposed MOU for approval by the Governing Board. If approved today, the Port District will then present the proposed MOU to their respective board, the Board of Port Commissioners, for their approval. Should both boards approve the MOU, implementation of the included measures would begin immediately. Next slide, please. Today's recommendations are the following. First, authorize the APCO to approve and enter into the MOU with the Port District to support implementation of the Portside SERP and MCAS. And second, find that the proposed action is not a project and is therefore exempt from CEQA. That concludes my long presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of our board members have any technical questions before we move on to public comment? Okay, seeing none. Clerk?
Thank you. I'd first like to note for the record that Member Fitzgerald has joined the meeting. I would also like to go ahead and begin calling our public speakers. We have 7 in total. Our first speaker is Sarah Marsh. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record, and please use the timer that is on the screen to self-regulate your time.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sarah Marsh, for the record. I am the Director of Operations for Dole Fresh Fruit, but also the Board Chair for the San Diego Working Waterfront. We are here to fully support this proposed MOU between APCD and the Port of San Diego. It's collaborative, adaptive framework that reflects our commitment to environmental stewardship while sustaining the working waterfront economy. I want to call your attention to the letter of support that we've already submitted, signed by myself, also Sharon Cloward, the San Diego Working Waterfront President, but also several of our partners, including Harborside, Refrigerated Services, Pasha Group, Builders First Source, and SSA Pacific. This MOU promotes electrification, cleaner technologies, and the infrastructure modernization. This is all key for long-term sustainability. This provides flexibility and accountability through measurable, progressive milestones that align with the Maritime Clean Air Strategy and the Portside Community Emissions Reduction Plan. This prioritizes voluntary, incentive-based implementation that's vital for small and mid-sized businesses that drive our economy. It also emphasizes public engagement and transparency, ensuring that communities and businesses are all part of the solution. So again, on behalf of Dole Fresh Fruit and the San Diego Working Waterfront and our partners, we urge this governing board to approve the MOU. It's a strong example of how collaboration can advance environmental goals while keeping San Diego's waterfront working for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Philip Gibbons. You have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record.
Sure. My name is Phil Gibbons. I'm a program director at the Port of San Diego. I manage our climate sustainability team. Thanks, Chair and members of the board. We're really excited to be here today. I'd like to thank your staff for the past 2 or 3 years that we've been negotiating this MOU. It's been a pleasure to work with them and then bring forward this proposed MOU to you today. As Nick mentioned in his presentation, we certainly haven't been idle for the past few years while we've been negotiating this. We have a down payment now of $227 million into clean air and are helping to build a thriving, sustainable waterfront right here in San Diego. We're really proud of that effort. And these projects are not just the port's money. These are also money from APCD, our tenants, many other stakeholders that believe in clean air in our region. I've worked in San Diego in the environmental industry for 20 years now, and lots of things can be said about San Diego, but I think we do have a collaborative spirit in this region to solve complex problems. And this MOU embodies that spirit, I think, moving forward. So this MOU will continue these efforts to improve air quality, especially for the Portside community. This is a really unique collaboration, I think can serve as a model for the rest of the state that are dealing with these same issues. With your direction today, we hope to continue to strengthen our partnership and advance implementation of the MCAS and the SERP. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Thomas Jelinek. You have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Chair Bush, board members. My name is Thomas Jelinek. I'm with the Pacific Merchant Shipping Association. PMSA is a trade association representing ocean carriers and marine terminal operators operating on the U.S. West Coast. And we're here to fully support this MOU. We think this is a fabulous collaboration between the maritime industry and local government. And we think this is a model that can be rolled out in other areas. I think you all know the port is an important economic contributor to our economy, $14 billion here in San Diego. The port is also a leader in environmental progress. The emission reductions that have been achieved since 2005 are enormous, over 91% reduction in diesel toxics. And to put that in perspective, the state of California has a goal of reducing diesel toxics by 85%. So the port here is ahead of state goals in terms of achieving important emission reductions for the local community. And you have important programs like the VSR, the vessel speed reduction proposed down here. I worked on the vessel speed reduction program that was established in San Pedro Bay. That is one of the single most important emission reduction strategies that have been implemented in reducing emissions for local communities and throughout the region. And finally, as you've heard multiple times, public engagement is an important aspect of this. We firmly believe that this collaboration, in lieu of a rule, is the best way forward. We believe that this MOU will serve as a model for what's going on in the South Coast right now. And we, again, fully support this MOU and encourage this board to adopt it so we can achieve the emission reductions here and continue collaboration throughout the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cesar Javier. You have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record.
Cesar Javier, Mr. Chair, Governing Board Member, Mayor Gloria, please listen, including Madam Purvis. This is the second and third polluters. We have the small mobility, the big mobility, the maritime, and industrial combined in the port territory. MOU right now that being shaped is inadequate. Maybe timely because you have been working so many years. We're just thankful that the sea breeze from the Pacific Ocean dilutes that emission. That's a fact. Now, the mission of the Air Pollution Control District, air quality for all, or clean air for all, very simple. Justifying corruption. Where is the collaboration with SANDAG, the Shoreline Protection Agency, the lead agency in land protection? This is the meeting of land and the seawater, Pacific Ocean. Come to think of it, Mayor Gloria, Governing Board Member, Mr. Chair, National City, which affects your shoreline, affects District 2 and portion of District 8, underserved community. You have a strong collaboration with this MOU. You should be there. And all these agencies, lead agencies, APCD is only commenting according to their tasks, which is community engagement. Is that the only effort you could do, ma'am? What happens to Tijuana pollution connected to the port territory?
Thank you, Mr. Javier.
Thank you. Listen, think.
Thank you. Our next speaker is joining us virtually, Chris Shimoda. You have 2 minutes to address the board. You may come off mute and begin when you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and governing board members. Chris Shimoda on behalf of the Supply Chain Federation. We're a national trade association representing both employers and labor in the logistics and maritime sectors. We are in strong support of the proposed MOU and would like to applaud the work of the district and the port in working together to arrive at this agreement. As demonstrated by the historic emission reductions achieved by the San Pedro Bay Clean Air Action Plan and the Port of San Diego's own efforts to reduce its environmental footprint, collaborative approaches between industry, port authorities, and regulators can deliver tangible results. Emissions from ports have been reduced by over 90%, with some sources, such as heavy-duty trucks, being reduced by over 99%. The proposed MOU will ensure further progress, including advancement of zero-emission technologies through an iterative approach that combines assessment of challenges and barriers with investments by both the port and district to help overcome those barriers. Again, we would like to express our strong support for the proposed MOU, thank the ports and the district for investing in this transition, and urge the board to support the staff recommendation to move forward with the MOU. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is number 3731. 3731, you can come off mute and begin when you're ready.
Hi, it's true. Thank you. Voluntary commitments with no specific details. I can see why the port loves it. The port's maritime industrial impact funding is basically health offsets, which agencies like APCD get to extort and spend. from National City's 2024 Municipal Service Agreement results and findings said that at the port, quote, EV cars, trucks, and charging stations create greater conflagration risk. The fire department will have to purchase new equipment and engage in new training for handling EV fires, end quote. EV, ZEV, ZEST, whatever electric garbage is called, are not emission-free. They emit invisible pollution, and they also require tons of emissions in order to produce their lithium batteries. Just mining for lithium destroys the environment, not to mention the cost to process it in foreign countries, and then the cost to import it back, with a new cost to pay for the expensive electricity to operate, and then the cost and fire risk and cancer risk from lithium battery fires. Public engagement and outreach part of this item says the MOU was presented to anything but regular people, including a steering committee with corrupt Sandags, Oakland-based and skin color obsessed Green Mining Institute, Boston, Massachusetts-based Mothers Out Front, the well-funded Environmental Health Coalition, and a political union minion. That needs to change. Why can't this type of information be presented via social media and via pop-up events or booths at well-established events held in Portside communities? As part of the MOU, why would APCD work to get a $3 million grant from CARB, the state, to pay for private companies or the port to buy electric equipment? Doesn't the port have their own budget and advocates? Don't their tenants, like Pasha, make enough money to fund their own equipment? Why would APCD be doing this work? Why should every resident in the state fund what the port in San Diego County does? All the letters and comments from port businesses and support, I can see why. They don't have to really change anything or pay for anything. APCD even giving the port $4 million in equipment is ethically questionable. How can you claim there's not enough money for air purifiers, but turn around and hand out these $1 million checks to an agency that's already well funded? Green Marine sounds like money when I hear it.
Thank you, Chair. Your time has expired.
Thank you. That concludes public testimony on this item.
Thank you. So for now, we will move on to board's comment and questions. I'll kick it off by thanking staff again and the members of the working waterfront industry officials that have come out and support this effort. As you all know, it's been a couple of years, and as someone who represents in District 1 for APCD, represents a portside community and a community in National City that has been burdened by pollution, and particularly pollution from port operations from a freeway for decades, with high rates of asthma and cancer. I really appreciate this effort. It's taking a different approach than just regulating, which, you know, we're a regulatory agency, and I think that's often at times a stronger way to go. But I really appreciate staff being collaborative, reaching out to the industry groups, working waterfront, the port, and with all these conversations. I appreciate on the schedule. So the number 1 through 5, a couple of things that really impacts our area. And we're seeing a lot of even current projects now is with the trucks. So that was item number 2 in the transition to zero emissions trucks. I just want to point out to staff, we actually have some proposals right now that I know you all are aware of. There's one proposal with USDG Fuels that staff, I appreciate you all, and I'll give a shout out to Mayani for coming out to National City and speaking to our community members. So I just want to point out that just to the extent that, assuming that this gets adopted the port, that we also look at seeing if that is consistent with those proposals are consistent with the MOU. So I would just ask for some extra, take an extra look at that. There's also, that is on Port Title's property, it's referenced here, it's the zero emission truck charging facility, and there's some battery storage, some charging facilities, a truck station. So there's been some community concerns there. One of the public commenters mentioned the fire hazard potential and the risk to battery, some additional equipment that our fire might have to step up and provide. We've heard those comments from fire. So as much as I appreciate this transition to cleaner fuels and zero emissions, National City has traditionally been where we get dumped on a lot, and I don't want now for us to have all the concentration on some of these new technologies and take up all the risks. Like, that's a concern of the community. I don't expect that to happen, but it's just something that with this MOU, if we can just keep track of that and keep in communication with the port and with the relevant waterfront industries. But I think this is a great step step forward, and I appreciate all the collaboration. So I'm supportive of this and open to hearing any additional comments, questions, or concerns from our board. With that, Member Duncan.
Thank you. I appreciate the work as well of the APCD and the port, the APCD staff with the port staff. Obviously the air quality is important to all of the region and particularly to my city, Coronado, which often has the same air quality as Barrio Logan. I think it's also very important and admirable if we can do it in a way where we work with industry and do it in a cooperative way that they can support, it's more likely to be successful. So I'm fully supportive and I'm happy to make a motion to approve the item. Both parts, number 1 and 2, is set forth on the agenda, which is to authorize the Air Pollution Control Officer to approve and enter into the MOU, as well as the finding that the proposed action is not a project pursuant to CEQA guidelines.
Thank you, Member Duncan. So we have a motion from Member Duncan, and can I have a second? Okay, a second from Member Fitzgerald. I did have a follow-up question I forgot to ask. Getting back to the project, the release for projects, what was the soonest that, assuming the port approves this as well, what's the soonest for the call for the projects to fund the, I think the trucks and all the
cargo handling equipment?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the plan would be to immediately start working with the port and primarily the stakeholders to identify a project that would work, right? Part of the issue that we've run into the past is, the framework that was established by various grant programs wasn't always amenable to moving forward. And so that would be part of that process, is having those discussions with the tenants, with the Portside Steering Committee. I think there's some approvals needed from CARB staff as well. And so there's a little bit of time there, but the goal would be to try to get that out, within less than a year probably of the MOU getting forward. And that's why we have that timeline in there for, trying to have everything under contract within 3 years, because we realize there's time to develop the program, assess applications, go through that process. So, but we would start working on it, pretty much immediately.
So but the soonest, realistically, the soonest then, if you're saying a year, what is six months? Is that realistic? Are we talking about a January of 2026?
Probably on the front end, yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. And then Member Gomez?
I have 2 questions. One is on the 6 years of this agreement. Why 6 years? I'm just curious. Why not 5 or 10?
I think the reason we selected 6 years was because there's those timelines in both the MCAS and the MOU that cover 2026, I think, was one milestone year in those documents, and 2030 is another. And so we wanted to make sure we tried to cover both of those time periods with this MOU.
Okay, thank you for that. I was just curious. My other question is in relation to air emission reductions. I know that that's a goal, but I don't see, was it intentional that we're not committing to a certain amount of reduction of air quality?
That's a very good question. And yes, that is an intentional component of the agreement. Part of the reason why we need to be careful there is the CARB funding that we're using has limitations on if the ability to use those funds, if it's required by a rule, regulation, agreement like an MOU. And so we were very careful in the way we crafted this document to still allow access to those funds, but use the goal of getting those funds under contract as the mechanism to getting those emission reductions. And so we've vetted the language with CARB to make sure that it still meets their requirements and still maintains the eligibility to utilize those funding sources.
Okay, I understand that, and that makes sense, but I'm just wondering, from a practicality, perhaps having a follow-up. So how would we measure success? That is my actual question. As a resident of Barrio Logan, I would want to know what does it look like? And what's the commitment between us and the port, which I appreciate the relationship and the fact that we're working together and there's commitment. That's all great. But at the end of the day, what does success look like in this MOU?
The structure of the MOU, success looks like the expenditure of those funds, which then results in the emission reductions. And so the intent would be, as we're reporting back to the community and this board and the ports board on progress, identifying, hey, we've implemented project X, used X amount of dollars, and here are the emission reductions that are achieved by this, whatever it is, cargo handling equipment being taken off the road and replaced with a zero emission unit. And so we had to be very careful in the way we crafted it to avoid any conflicts, but the metric is tied to the expenditure of those funds, which then equals emission reductions, which will be part of what we report back to the community.
Okay, I'm looking forward to hearing some more as it gets implemented. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Member Granados.
Down there. Hi. Kind of what Member Gomez was talking about, and I had mentioned, I think, on our call, just to, so I can wrap my head around this as I'm new. One of the things that, you know, because this is voluntary, and I understand the pros and cons of this being a voluntary program, something we had talked about was this idea of independent verification of these emissions and the health outcomes. And so something I was thinking about as well is like, how do we measure success? And how do we be transparent about that? So I had suggested having some sort of a dashboard that shows the emissions reductions. And I know it doesn't have to be necessarily put into the language right now, but something that we need to keep track of to make sure that this really is a successful model and it's other people can adapt it. We want it to be successful. We don't want it to have to be mired down in legalities of a rule. So having some sort of a dashboard with the mapping, and I looked up the mapping tools that you were showing me that we already have, showing reduction emissions, and then also doing some sort of like a cumulative impact modeling would be really good to see how these emissions reductions map with like freeway emission reductions and how does that intersect with health outcomes. And so I think we have room to talk about like what are the different tools we can use to look at some of, is it working? Is it just like a slow, you know, decline? Is it going up, or is it like really actually significantly working? And so maybe we could talk about the best metrics to make sure that they're similar to what they would be if it were a rule and it was regulatory enforcement versus voluntary, and see if we're meeting all of those. So I think what I read was that there's room to do that in there. And so just kind of throwing that out there as a suggestion on how to make sure it's successful and let the community members know. And I think I'll just leave it saying like putting up a report on the website is great, but I think having more of a dashboard type approach that people can digest a little more easily might be helpful also for community members and myself to just look at the science and the data and see if it's working or not.
That's an outstanding suggestion, and I think that that's definitely something that, as we work with the port on implementation of the MOU, we could talk about the best way to communicate those successes and, you know, what's working and what may not be working and how we can adjust that. And I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of making sure that's digestible for the community and even involving the community in those discussions on what makes sense, right? Is it a dashboard? Is it a map? Is it, you know, fact sheets, whatever that looks like. So I think those are all things that we can do in collaboration with our partners as we implement the MOU.
I really appreciate the suggestions from Member Granados and Gomez, and second, those agree with them. On the dashboard, love that idea. I think the visuals are helpful. Question about the if we're measuring success, one of the things that I've heard disputed from some industry groups, members, businesses, in terms of our data is the lack of monitors, and a lot of what we do have is some of its projections, some of its estimates. So for example, on the proposed this fuel transfer facility in National City, there's no monitors in that area yet. I'm not sure. I'd be curious if staff can tell me. I think it's in the plan to have monitors in National City, but we don't. So the nearest monitor is Sherman Heights, which isn't the best. That's so far from National City. It's really not the best data. So to our members' points about how we're measuring success and getting kind of a before and after, how soon can those monitors be implemented in National City? What's the plan for that? But then do we have plans for other monitors so that we can make sure we're measuring the success on this dashboard or whatever it looks like?
So thank you, Chair Bush, for that question. I'm looking at some of my team members in the audience there to help with the timing for the monitors in National City.
Thank you. We currently have two monitoring sites planned coming online at National City. One is at the train depot by 24th Street, and the other one is at the Navy RV parking lot. We had to do a lot of prep work in those sites to be able to site our equipment there. And right now, We're currently working on the permits associated with the actual construction of the site, but we are hoping to see those projects coming online within the next year.
And then I would think that some of the existing sites, like the one you mentioned at Sherman, we also have some other sites that we set up in Barrio Logan as part of the AB 617 program that we would also be collecting data from to be able to make some comparisons down the road.
Could this funding be used for additional monitors throughout the area?
Not the funding that is associated with the MOU.
Okay.
So those would be different sources of funding pots.
Got it. Well, I would just ask, I know it's, that one is a year off, but as we implement this MOU, making sure that we have the best status possible and to the extent that we can maximize air monitors in this area spread out geographically so it makes sense, so that we can compare, the progress on how we move forward with this MOU. I think that would be helpful.
Question regarding that, if I may.
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think Ms. Forbes had a response real quick to that, and if we can turn it back over to Member Fitzgerald and then Member Duncan, then we'll wrap this up.
Sure. Just to quickly respond. I think the timing may actually work out well in terms of, the time that we're going to need to develop the program. The other thing to keep in mind is that obviously monitoring data is impacted by a lot of different sources. So the different sources that we're targeting with this MOU are one piece of what is also impacting the broader community. So just to kind of tailor expectations a little bit for what that monitoring data might tell us. On the other hand, additional modeling efforts or risk assessment may be appropriate. Also something we could talk about in the implementation phase.
Great, thank you. And apologies, Member Fitzgerald.
I'm actually glad you went before me. You answered one of my questions. So that's really good as things are going to fluctuate. So essentially what I'm understanding is we're asking, which I think is a good idea for, being able to track progress. So that would be on an ongoing basis. I don't know, was that suggested? Yeah. And it's going to be made so the public can get that information ongoing basis and just track it with us. Okay, thank you. That's a good idea.
Thank you. Member Duncan?
Thank you. I just want to point out there's, obviously two ways to look at it. And part of what is, I think what you were addressing is one, obviously we care most about overall air quality in the region and all the communities. But on the other hand, you can quantify success when you take something that's producing a certain amount of pollution and change that to no emissions. You know that you've removed that cause. I mean, you can take something like whether it's the 2 electric ferries that are going to replace the other 2 ferries, you've just reduced those emissions by that exact amount. You can take the generators at the cruise ship docks, whatever, that have been, so the ships don't have to run, how much emissions they produce, and to almost a very close number, and when that's reduced. So it is true other circumstances may fluctuate, and I'm not against any comments any of the board members have made. I'm for the information and more transparency, but you can still see achievable potential success on many of the items that I think the MOU covers. So I just want to make that brief comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any final comments from board members? Yes, Member Granados.
Yeah, one more thing. I also totally agree with that. You can look at models and say, oh, if we reduce this number of emissions to 0, then absolutely you can see those changes. And I think my comment was more towards making sure that we're doing enough to benefit the communities that are being exposed more highly to that. So is it sufficient to say the 2 ferries reduce this amount, but we need greater? And so I really think that it's a good idea to look at across the board with that cumulative impact. And which reminded me whenever you said that, and also maybe Domingo could comment to this, is maybe it'd be good for us as a board to have a presentation on what baseline data do we have from the monitors that maybe, I'm new, so maybe you've given this in the past, but like what monitors are out there, what's the baseline data that we have? Because I also think too, just to show that it is successful, if we have good baseline data with the monitors in place, then we'll know what are we looking for. Because if it is mixed up with, freeway pollution and other sources of pollution, which we know it's not just straightforward. This is ocean, this is land. It'd be really good just to see how we can pull out the correct data. And then again, you have a baseline, you can see if it's working or not, because these are huge pollution factors with these cruise ships and things like that. So I love the idea of modeling with the 0 emissions along with seeing what's our baseline and then did those zero emissions actually work? Because you should see a drop. And I think that all that collectively together would make for a really good success story.
Great. All right, so with that, we have a motion in a second, and we'll go ahead and just call the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
All right, all those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Chair Bush. With members Campbell and Lawson Remer absent, that motion passes with all board members who are present voting aye.
Okay, so with that, we are going to move on to items E5 and E6. That's a closed session. So with that, I'll turn it over to our clerk to explain the procedures on that, because I think it's the first time we're like opening and closing it. So I wasn't even clear where we were meeting at. So
The board will now consider closed session items E5, conference with legal counsel, and E6, public employee performance evaluation. The board will stay in this room. We are going to clear the room so that you can have full discussion. I would note for the record that we have received no request to speak under public testimony for this item. And with that, if there are any reportable matters, they will be reported out in open session at the conclusion of both items.
great. So with that, we will go ahead and enter into closed session. We'll give some time to members of the public to clear the room, and I would estimate 30 minutes, but I can't say for sure. So yeah.
Madam Clerk, can we, now that we have quorum, can we resume open session?
Yes, Vice Chair Bergbeck Garcia.
And we have our counsel who would like to report out from closed session.
Yes, thank you. This board in closed session wished to recommend a salary adjustment of 4% for a total of approximately $252,272. And that vote will need to be officially taken in open session if this board wants to make that motion and take that vote now.
So we do the motion also at the time?
Correct.
Okay. Could I have a motion?
Would that vote actually be for item E7?
Yes, that is for item E7.
Okay. We need
I
to
will-
do public comment, right?
So I will note for the record that we have received no request to speak for item E7, and you can go ahead and call for a motion.
Could I have a motion for item E7 for the salary adjustment for our APCO?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. And I'll go ahead and second it.
Can I just a point of clarification? Can the motion be up to 4% based on the conversation that we had? Or 4%?
I think we need to choose, yes, if there was an up to, there would be no way to exercise the discretion further. This board needs to decide the actual percentage.
Okay. 4. Okay. Motion stands.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
Thank you. With members Bush, Fitzgerald, Campbell, Lawson, Reamer absent, that motion passes with those board members who are present voting aye.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now we're going to go back on the agenda to item E3, the 2024 air toxics hotspots.
Sorry, if I
Sorry.
might, sorry. Can I do the report out for item E5?
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Okay, so for the closed session, item E5, the governing board authorized the air pollution control officer to initiate litigation, including retaining outside counsel if necessary. Particulars about the litigation will be disclosed to any person upon inquiry after litigation has formally commenced. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Sorry about that. Now we will proceed with item E3, the 2024 Air Toxics Hotspots Program Annual Report for San Diego County. Madam Clerk, would you like to provide the public testimony instructions?
Thank you, Vice Chair Bergbeck Garcia. I would note for the record that public requests to speak are no longer accepted for this item. We have received 2 requests to speak on this item, and those requests will be heard at the conclusion of the staff presentation.
Thank you. Miney?
Chair. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Mayeni Luther. I'm a deputy director for the district. We are here today to present the 2024 report under the Air Toxic Hotspots program. This is a state mandated program that is designed to protect public health from toxic air emissions. Next slide, please. So the Hotspots program was established by Assembly Bill 2588 in 1987, and it's designed to identify facilities that can potentially create elevated health risks and ensure that those health risks are reduced. These health risks include serious conditions such as cancer, respiratory disease, and other long-term effects. If the facility's calculated health risk exceeds thresholds established under District Rule 1210, then that facility is subject to public notification and risk reductions. Next slide, please. As required by state law, the district prepared the report for 2024, and the report provides a comprehensive description of this program as well as key actions taken last year in order to reduce health risks from stationary sources. The report also highlights some major accomplishments since 2021 when this board adopted changes to District Rule 1210 to reduce cancer risk from 100 in a million to 10 in a million, as well as other changes to improve transparency and public engagement. So we're really proud to report that since 2021, we have approved 15 risk reduction plans, resulting in the risk reductions for approximately 2,000 homes, 80 businesses, and 1 community park. So that's a lot of people that would otherwise be exposed to these elevated health risks from stationary source. Next slide, please. This slide provides a screenshot of a mapping tool that we have available on our website. And what we want to show there is all the facilities that were subject to risk reductions since 2021. As you can see, these facilities are located all over the county. So we want to show that the green stars are facilities that have fully implemented risk reduction plans. And again, this is just since 2021. And the blue stars are the facilities that are in the process of implementing those plans. And the orange stars are the facility that have submitted plans to the district, and we are currently evaluating those plans. Next slide, please. The draft report was released for public review on April 24th. We had a meeting on May 14th, and we conducted outreach in both English and Spanish via the district subscription services as well as social media. Since public engagement is a key component of this program, we want to take this opportunity to promote our website where you can find an interactive mapping tool as well as a lot of information regarding public notifications and risk reduction plans. Next slide, please. So today's recommendation is to consider and approve the final 2024 air toxic hotspots annual report for San Diego County. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Madam Clerk, are there any members of the public that would like to address the board regarding this item?
Thank you. I would call Cesar Javier to the podium. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record, and please self-monitor or self-regulate your time using the timer on the screen.
Cesar Javier, I am not comfortable saying yes or no to the report. Let us think about the substance of what we did to address these hotspots. We have so many hotspots since 1993. Did we solve the Tijuana pollution hotspot, ma'am? Is it part of your report? Or are we increasing this hotspot at this time, point, and condition? We have heard many presentations. Hotspots, if we try to find the criteria to define this word, what are they? Value analysis, population explosion. Value analysis, we haven't done anything on those big businesses. Treatment plants. Escondido, did we have the result? How much money did we spend to settle that amount? I mean, that kind of emission. Now we are pinpointing landfills. Let's solve first those that are being existing. And they always continue because of that money settlement. 231,000 salary for the Air Pollution Control District assigned leadership. We recommend that the leadership must be voted by the people because this is #1 survival kit, clean air, followed by clean water, followed by clean food, clean and safe neighborhood. We are only scratching the tip of our survival, ma'am. Air Pollution Control Officer with a salary of $231. what are we?
Mr. Javier, can you
Thank
please
you.
define your comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next call, or our next public speaker is caller number 3731. 3731, you can come off of mute. Please state your name for the record. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
Hi, it's Truth. For enforcing public notification and risk reduction requirements, what about fire-prone battery energy storage sites? Shouldn't communities be immediately notified when a battery site is coming to their neighborhood by companies like SDG&E? Are there really dry cleaners having to submit reports to APCD? That's ridiculous. And expanding from harassing 200 facilities to over 5,000 facilities, is there even enough staff, equipment, and budget for that? Look at how many businesses have already chosen to not submit an emissions inventory report. So I see a major fail coming, along with even more businesses permanently leaving crazy California. Of the 3 meetings held on private businesses, how many regular people attended? Because I got a feeling that Encino Wastewater Authority and Minnesota Methane had only employees attend. And how does MPCD know how to reduce emissions from things like nickel? Are there industry experts that are giving these businesses advice on a better way to operate? Or is this just a game of moving stuff to a tiny bit further away from residents to get the right numbers to make it seem like air quality is improved? Because that's how one Martin Marietta APCD story reads. They just moved unpaved haul roads to the center of the facility to have it a little further away from homes. In reality, we have industrial zones for a reason. If zones were actually honored in this state, we'd have a lot less issues. And why are there so many health risk assessments rescinded? The state regulations means any potential solutions and requirements on dangerous facilities takes 5 years. That's some serious bureaucracy. So why is a plan required for public notification? APCD can't just send out an email and flyers. And Poseidon claims APCD has achieved measurable public health improvements. I'd like to see some evidence for that. Some measurable results would be nice. And I have to say it, there was zero mention of Imperial Beach having real toxic air spots versus laundry. It was more about making money off settlements, the usual from APCD. And that is why I'm watching you guys. I'm like an air monitor for APCD. Thank you.
That concludes public testimony on this item.
Any members have any comments on this agenda item? Member Koval?
The hotspot I'm most familiar with is landfill. It's in the city of San Diego, but it's right next to the city of Santee and homes. So the thing that jumped out for me in this hotspot report is based on regulatory deadlines in state law, it takes 2.5, 3 years to determine if a facility is subject to public notification and/or health risk reduction requirements. And I agree, as someone who lives in Santee, 2.5 to 3 years later that you're getting a notification that there was something in your area. What happens, locally is the residents get very upset. They create a Facebook page. They come to the city council meeting. They're complaining to us, and we're just finding out about it as well. So what is it at the state level that prohibits public notification of a hotspot sooner?
Thank you, Member Koval. That's a great question. So yes, as I mentioned, this is a state mandated program. And so we are required to evaluate emissions from the previous calendar year. And then we have to conduct, some calculations to find out whether or not that facility has the potential to create elevated health risks. Then state law requires that the facility conducts the health risk assessment, but they have 6 months to do that. And then after that, we have to review the health risk assessment and send it to OEHA. That's another state agency that has to review the health risk assessment and approve. The district also reviews the health risk assessment. So I think what I'm trying to convey here is that there are different milestones that adds up to that time that it takes to the point that public notification is conducted. And this timeline is established by state law.
Is there any opportunity to inform the public sooner? Does it require a change in state law? Is there something that we can do in tandem with this process going on so people are aware that we're working on it, that it's been identified as a hotspot, but then the process is working through and we'll follow up instead of just after it's done, we let them know.
Yeah, so after this board was formed, this program was certainly enhanced to the extent that now we are expediting the public notification and risk reduction to the extent it's possible. In terms of health risk, there are other tools that are available, online, so the public can be informed about potential health risk. Because I wanted to point it out that this program only addresses health risks from stationary sources like landfill, shipyards, and things like that. It doesn't even address potential health risks from mobile sources. So that's another key component in order to inform the public of, the cumulative potential health risks.
And Member Koval, if I may, Mayani mentioned that there are resources available on our website. We are continuing to work to expand those. So one of the ways we're looking to expand it is to include more information, for example, on permitted sources, all of our permitted sources. Now, Mayani, the program that she's describing only addresses a small number of those, and those are the ones with the higher levels of air toxics emissions. But certainly we can look to expand kind of the information that's available to people. And I understand, your frustration in, learning about emissions that occurred in a calendar year that's, 2 or 3 years prior. Unfortunately, for this particular program, we are limited by the process that's laid out in state law. However, we do continue to provide updates for facilities that are still above those thresholds. There's added public notification that occurs, even after they've been identified as a hotspot until those emissions are reduced below thresholds.
And just to add to that real quick, like I said, this board prioritized this program, which wasn't prioritized in the past. And so that's a huge accomplishment. And what I wanted to convey, and that's why we provide some stat as far as how many people were protected from this elevated health risks, thanks to this board. And the list of facilities subject to this program is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So I think our goal is to eventually not even having to conduct these public notifications, right? Because when we apply these risk reduction measures, we have to estimate the projected risk. So, I think that this is a great program. And again, I think the goal is to not have any facility with elevated health risks.
It helps me to understand, and we can probably just go to our city manager and say, these are the tools that exist. It'd be great. I don't know if all city managers know about the tools that you have and how you track hotspots, and it's helpful to know that, and then we can just proactively relay it to our citizens. That'll help a lot. So thanks.
Any other comments, Member Gomez?
Just as a suggestion, I know that other previous members that were part of the board had APCD come to the city to talk about this, so that could be an idea as well. And I know that APCD is more than happy to be there, and it's an opportunity also to express the work that APCD does for constituents. I think it's always an opportunity. I'm wondering, this is a question, just trying to understand processes. So when certain industries are seeking permission to be cited, they do an analysis. So we are aware that there might be a threat to exceed in the above regulations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that then what happens? Meaning that is the first notice and city is regulating these permits, right?
Mm.
Or would it be the state, or it depends on what it is?
Yes. So, Member Gomez, if I understand your question, you're asking that if a facility comes to us to apply for a permit, then we do evaluate potential health risks from that project. But what the Hotspots program does is that it looks at the entire facility retroactively. And so it's more comprehensive than just analyzing a project that is subject to a permitting requirement.
And so kind of how that works in practice
Yeah.
is that say, there's an existing facility. Miney's got them in the hotspots program. They've been reducing their risks, but they bring in an application for a new permit for a new operation at that facility. That new operation is assessed under a different rule to ensure that there's not going to be added health risks above specified thresholds in that rule. And then that facility in the cycle of the hotspots program is evaluated as a whole. And so it's an ongoing program that ensures that over time, all of these facilities are reducing their risk below thresholds.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Members Stigler Granados.
Sorry. I just had just a clarifying question too, and thank you because I'm learning more about this, and I looked at the mapping tool and have been enjoying like messing around with the layers, and yeah, so I was geeking out on it there. But I'm thinking about it more in terms of like, and this is again a question to understand it a little bit better as you're doing this, putting them in this program, and I know it's stationary sources and permanent sources too, and looking at, are they expanding? Are we looking at that? Again, I'll go back to the cumulative impact modeling. Like, so there's this facility that's, in this area, it's considered a toxic, I feel weird calling it a toxic hotspot, but it's in the program. And they do apply. Are we looking at what's going on around it too? Not just them themselves, but is that neighborhood already impacted by X number of facilities, X number of health conditions, being close to a freeway, all of those outside components that don't have anything necessarily to do with the facility, but have to do with the demographics and the geographics of the location itself to be comprehensive?
Sure. Great question. So the hotspots program only applies to a single stationary source, right? However, we do have other programs that we are responsible for implementing that will look at the cumulative health impact, so it's more comprehensive. And so CEQA, for example, under CEQA, we do look at, the entire, area, and, we evaluate cumulative health impacts. Also, the air protection program, the community air protection program, 617, that, it gives us an opportunity to address more of these localized health impacts.
And I'll just add that, like, with the city of Santee, we have a safety element that addresses what you're talking about. So it incorporates air pollution, but all of the things. And that's how you come up with environmental justice neighborhoods.
Paula, did you have a comment?
Sure, I'll just add one last comment. From a strictly stationary source perspective, which again is one piece of the pie, right? We're not seeing a lot of overlap at this point because risks have been reduced pretty effectively. I believe we've got, just a handful of facilities, as Miney showed on the map, that are still in the risk reduction program. So there's not that overlapping cumulative risk between those stationary sources. Again, that doesn't take into account mobile sources and other, sources of pollution in the area, but it's a good news story that this program has been operating to reduce those cumulative risks from stationary sources.
Yeah, we have 5 facilities that are still working with us and reducing those risks, but they are all over the county, so not concentrated.
Any further questions or comments? Could I call for a motion to approve the final 2024 Air Toxic Hotspots Program Annual Report for San Diego County?
I'll second.
Perfect. So we have a motion from Member Gomez and a second from Member Koval. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. We're going to move
Thank
now.
you. With members, that's okay. With members Bush, Campbell, Fitzgerald, and Lawson Reamer absent, that motion passes with those board members who are present voting aye.
Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item E4, overview of the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District. Madam Clerk, do you mind providing public testimony instructions?
We have only received one request to speak on this item, and we will hear that speaker at the conclusion of the staff presentation.
Perfect. Paula?
Sure. So this is just a brief overview of the San Diego Air Pollution Control District operations. Again, because members are new, we wanted to bring this presentation back. It may be a bit of a refresher for those of you who've been on the board for several years, but we'll make it fast. I'm going to be presenting today along with our counsel, Heidi Gabriel Pack, who will be talking about the different roles and authorities of the Air Pollution Control Officer, the Governing Board, and our Hearing Board. So we'll just give you this quick overview. Next slide, please. So just in summary, I'm just going to hit the very brief highlights. I know we're late in the afternoon. Looking generally at the structure of air quality regulation in California, the different regulatory functions and roles within APCD, as well as our program overview. Next slide, please. So we are one of 35 air districts across California. Each of us has our own governing board and different structures as well, and with our own governing body to address the different challenges and different air pollution issues that may be in each region. Air districts are established under both the state and federal Clean Air Acts, and we are local agencies responsible for implementing air quality programs. Generally, at a very high level, local air districts grew out of county public health departments, and so many air districts have functioned in this capacity prior to even adoption of the Federal Clean Air Act. Generally, we are tasked with regulating stationary sources, like we've talked about, factories, landfills, power plants, and yes, even dry cleaners, gas stations, and the smaller sources as well. Next slide, please. And so this slide gives an overview of how we coordinate with our federal and state oversight agencies. The federal U.S. Environmental Protection Agency sets national ambient air quality standards and develops federal air quality regulations, which in many cases we are delegated to enforce. The state California Air Resources Board, of which our Mayor Gloria is a member, sets state air quality standards and develops statewide air quality regulations, again, many of which we also enforce. And then locally, the APCD, we monitor air quality, we develop plans to attain those state and federal air quality standards. So we develop local air quality regulations, and then again, we implement these rules that are passed down to us from the state and federal government, as well as our own. And then next, this picture just kind of shows different sources of air pollution and generally where they are regulated. The federal EPA is generally tasked with regulating sources of pollution such as locomotives, aircraft, and ships, things that are often crossing state boundaries. California has some limited ability to regulate mobile sources, and you'll see a lot in the news about that recently. And then we are tasked with regulating stationary sources. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Heidi.
Thank you, Paula. Okay, so this slide shows the governance structure of air districts in California. In general, air districts have 3 levels of government. The governing board, that's you, performs the legislative function. The Air Pollution Control Officer, or APCO, performs the executive function, and the hearing board performs the judicial function. And all 3 of these functions are described in state law, and there's a couple of exceptions to these broad generalizations, which I will note as we go through. Next slide, please. The governing board, you're the legislative body for the district, similar to a city council or the county board of supervisors. So you adopt the rules, regulations, attainment plans, the permit program, and in general provide the policy direction for the district. You also adopt, as you did today, the district's budget and appoint the air pollution control officer and the hearing board members, and work with the number of district employees, and the compensation is actually coordinated with the county. Your board also has a limited judicial function, which is the power to issue an abatement order. If after a notice and a hearing, you find that any person is in violation of any rule or regulation within the district's authority. Next slide, please. So the Air Pollution Control Officer, that's the executive function. And the Air Pollution Control Officer is responsible for implementing the board policies and managing the day-to-day operations of the district within the confines of the adopted budget. Also responsible for enforcing the applicable provisions of state and federal and local rules and laws, issuing notices of violation for violations of the air quality laws, hearing board orders, and permit conditions. Actually, the APCO can also issue an abatement order, but this is an interim abatement order for violations which would cause an imminent or substantial endangerment to public health or environment. Next slide, please. This board has delegated their pollution control officer some authority, for example, to request county council or other agencies to initiate enforcement actions, refer to other government agencies for prosecution or enforcement, and apply for grants to improve air quality, for example, and implement those grant programs, enter into site license agreements. One example of would be monitoring stations, which you've heard about, and that is only if it's the annual lease fee is less than $7,500. Next slide, please. So the hearing board is the judicial function of the district, and it's a 5-member quasi-judicial body appointed by you, the governing board, to perform specified functions. They have a fixed term, and they hold public hearings to consider a few different things. Permit appeals, if for a permittee, a facility, or a member of the public that has participated in the permit process. They also consider variance requests for a temporary waiver from a rule or requirement when something is beyond their reasonable control while it works to return to compliance. And then we have also abatement orders. And they can issue abatement orders to order a facility to comply with a rule or regulation. And one note is that the district hearing board has a different county council to advise it under state law. Next slide, please. So you see there's some checks and balances in this structure of the district. So we have external checks and balances in the oversight that we have from the California Air Resources Board and federal US EPA. They can step in if we do not fulfill our mandates, and also the courts can review actions that the district takes. And then on an internal basis, you can see that as I've discussed, the internal structure provides that checks and balances with the different functions. With you adopting the rules, their pollution control officer enforcing the rules, the hearing board hearing the appeals, and deciding whether to grant waivers from the rule requirements. So that is, I'll turn it over back to Paula.
Thank you, Heidi. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to linger here. You hopefully are all well aware of our vision and mission. We talk about it a lot as our guiding principle. Next slide. And then here are the goals and objectives that the board adopted a few years ago. You'll see these repeated and guiding our work in for example, our budget, our strategic plan. So you'll see these goals and objectives flowing through other documents for our agency. Next slide, please. So this is just a schematic I wanted to show you to kind of demonstrate how our programs fit together. So Heidi mentioned the different roles of the different bodies of the agency. This is internal divisions within the agency and how they work together to pursue our mission of clean air. So first, with our monitoring and technical services division, they obviously monitor for air quality and then provide that information to our planning and rule development teams. Our planning team then, based upon the air quality data and our level of attainment, they will develop plans in order to determine what it's going to take for us to come into attainment. Then our rule development team takes those plans and develops rules to implement the plans. Next, our engineering team develops permits for the variety of facilities that we have in San Diego, and those permits incorporate conditions that ensures that all those rules are enforced. And then finally, our compliance team goes out and regularly inspects all of those facilities to ensure that they're complying with their permit terms. Those are our core function divisions, and then they are all supported by the other functions that you see, in the circle around them. We have council that provides services from county council. We have our support services team, which handles fiscal matters, administrative functions on our admin services team, such as HR and clerk of the board. And then we also have our grants and incentives team that is working to provide, as you've heard in other presentations, contracts and grant funding for folks to come into to adopt cleaner equipment before it's required. And then finally, and last but certainly not least, is our environmental justice team, which is ensuring that all of our programs are benefiting all communities and that we're getting out to all the communities that need our services. And sorry to rush through that. Again, I know it's late, but that is a quick overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any members of the public that wish to address the board on this item?
Thank you, Vice Chair Burkbeck Garcia. We have one member of the public, number 3731. 3731, you can come off of mute. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record.
Yeah, thank you. It's Truth. I only signed up for this item because the online speaker request form had items E3 and E4 mixed up. So that's something that needs to be looked at in your overview. But thank you for providing that brief report. However, I'm well acquainted with bureaucracy, so I'm going to address the omissions. Is CARB really oversight, or are they really the mandators, the dictators of what you have to implement? Because are we, the people, not the true oversight of APCD? Because it should be the people at the top of the organizational chart. I also heard someone just talk about hopes and wishes of better air quality. In government, one cannot operate on hope alone. There must be specified expectations and goals so that the people can be held accountable. I believe it was Paula that talked about comprehensive data to understand full concerns that, when actually addressed, could produce real results. That's what APCD needs to incorporate as a standard operating procedure. I also did not hear anything about civility from board members, because that's a reciprocal topic, as in one may politely ask for more kindness, but should never demand it from anyone who's taken their unpaid time, a lot of it, to provide comment. To do otherwise is disrespectful and unprofessional. That's my advice. And does APCD coordinate specifically with the EPA? Does APCD coordinate with Mexico? Because I love when agencies can branch out and actually maybe achieve things. And APCD also needs to start visiting different cities to convey that it even exists. People need to know who else they can bug about the issues that they just learned about 5 years later. You know what I mean? Thank you. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. That concludes public testimony on this item.
Any comments from any of the members of the board or questions? Nope. This was an informational item only, so there is no need for any motions or actions, is my understanding, correct? Thank you. We'll move on to item F, Air Pollution Control Officer Report.
Sure. Thank you, Vice Chair Burkbeck Garcia. I just have a couple of quick updates. First, on the Tijuana River Valley, I wanted to let the board and the public know that we have provided over 5,000 purifiers to the community as of now, and we're really proud of that. We have received over 6,000 applications. We have funding for 10,000 units, so we're still getting the word out and still encouraging folks to apply if they live in the affected zip codes. And so we're continuing to work with stakeholders on getting more purifiers out into the community and expanding our outreach efforts, especially to those communities where we haven't seen the level of applications that we had anticipated. Next, We had a tour with the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. They were in town, as you may have seen in the media. They are conducting an evaluation to determine whether exposure to chemicals in the Tijuana River Valley could harm the health of community members. And so we've been sharing data from our monitoring efforts, and we were part of the tour that they conducted on Tuesday and took them out to our monitoring stations, as well as to Berry Elementary, where they could talk directly to school officials, since we have one of our monitoring stations there. And then during the tour, we shared information about our equipment, why the different sites were selected, and our activities in general in response to the crisis. And as part of the study that ATSDR is doing, they're going to make recommendations to agencies, community members, and others to prevent and minimize harmful exposures associated with the Tijuana River. Next, I have an update related to Austell, and we are serving as lead agency under the California Environmental Quality Act for a project that's proposing the installation and operation of a floating dry dock at the Austell USA facility in National City. And so the dry dock would serve both governmental and commercial vessels in San Diego Bay. The draft EIR for that project was released for public review on April 29th, and the comment period closes today. To date, we've received one comment, and that's from the Fish and Wildlife, California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So we're going to continue to track that and work with our consultant to respond to any comments that were received by the deadline. And then just a couple of quick updates related to events. I wanted to thank Dr. Birkbeck Garcia for coming out to our All Hands event in May and giving a keynote that was really well received by our staff, which related to her work as a physician and the importance of our work as air quality professionals to promote public health. And lastly, I spoke at the Working Waterfront Group board meeting on June 4th and at the IEA conference along with several staff from APCD that were giving different presentations. We're at the conference on June 5th, and there were some great sessions there related, again, to Tijuana River Valley, as well as a lot of other environmental concerns. So we were happy to be there. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Do we take comments on this part? Okay. And then item G is our Planning and Policy Committee report. We met on May 8th prior to our budget meeting. At that meeting, we did discuss and approve our future Planning and Policy Committee calendar. So we approved the dates for our meetings, which are on opposite months of when the governing board meets. So same Thursday, same time, but just on the months when we're not meeting as a governing board. We received from staff a legislative program update where they discussed different state and assembly bills that were coming up. And we also were able to review a working draft of our SDAPCD strategic plan. And so if there's no other comments from our board members, then I would like to adjourn today's meeting. Our next governing board meeting will be held on August 14th at 2 p.m. Thank you, everyone.